The day everything changed. I never thought I'd see the day my own daughter would talk to me like that. I'm 58, retired after 30 years working as a mechanic. My wife passed away 5 years ago, and since then, my daughter, Sarah, has been the only family I've really got left. She's 32, successful, owns her own little online clothing business, and last year she invited me to move in with her, so I wouldn't be alone. At first, it felt like a blessing. She had a nice suburban home, modern kitchen, big backyard, and she told me I could just relax and enjoy life. I cooked dinner sometimes, helped water her plants, and watched TV with her dog, Milo. But lately, things have changed, and I can't figure out why. A few weeks ago, she started acting different. Cold, short-tempered, always buried in her phone or laptop. When I offered to make breakfast one morning, she sighed and said, "Dad, if you're not going to help around here properly, then what are you even doing living here?" That hit me. Properly. What did that even mean? I already helped as much as I could. But that was just the beginning. The following week, she started handing me to-do lists, laundry, dishes, vacuuming, even packaging her online orders. At first, I laughed, thinking she was joking. But she wasn't. Then yesterday, she said something I'll never forget. Greater than, "Dad, if you don't start taking this seriously, I'll have to ask you to move out. I need someone who actually contributes, not just lives here for free." It felt like my heart stopped. My own daughter, threatening to kick me out, unless I became her unpaid worker. That night, I sat in my room, staring at the boxes of her business stacked by my bed. I couldn't believe how fast things had turned. Was I being ungrateful? Or was she losing sight of what family really meant? But something inside me told me this wasn't just about chores or helping. Something deeper and darker was going on. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, around 6 a.m. The house was quiet, except for the hum of Sarah's printer in her office down the hall. She'd been working late into the night for weeks, barely speaking to me unless it was to remind me of some task I'd forgotten. I made coffee and brought her a cup, like I used to when she was a teenager studying for exams. She didn't even look up when I set it on her desk. "Thanks," she muttered flatly, eyes glued to the screen. Her voice had lost its warmth, the kind of voice that used to call me daddy when she needed comfort. As I looked around her office, I noticed how cluttered it had become. Boxes stacked everywhere, receipts scattered across the floor, and half-filled mugs on the shelves. Her computer screen showed dozens of browser tabs open, spreadsheets, supplier invoices, and something that caught my eye, an email with the subject line, "Urgent, past due payment." I didn't say anything, but my chest tightened. Maybe she was struggling financially. Maybe all that pressure was spilling onto me. That afternoon, while I was folding her business packaging in the kitchen, Sarah came in with her phone pressed to her ear, whispering harshly, "No, I told you, I'll pay by Friday. Don't threaten me." Then she hung up and slammed her phone on the counter. When she noticed me watching, she snapped, "What? You're just standing there. Can you at least sweep the floor?" I froze. "Sarah, what's going on? You've been tense lately. Is everything all right?" Her expression softened for a split second, just a second, before the wall came back up. "I'm fine," she said, forcing a smile. "Just do me a favor, Dad. Don't worry about things that aren't your business." Those words stung more than I care to admit. Not my business. She was my daughter, my only family. Of course it was my business. That night, I couldn't sleep. I could hear her pacing in the living room, whispering on the phone, the words, loan, deadline, and collections, slipping through the walls. I realized then that she wasn't just being ungrateful, she was in trouble. And whatever it was, she was trying to hide it from me. The next day, Sarah left early, said she had to meet a supplier. Her tone was clipped, rushed. I watched from the front porch as she backed out of the driveway, phone already pressed to her ear, her brow furrowed like someone carrying the weight of the world. Once her car disappeared down the street, I sat there for a while, thinking. My gut told me something was terribly wrong. She'd never been this secretive, not even as a rebellious teenager sneaking out to parties. Finally, I stood up and walked to her office. I wasn't proud of what I was about to do, but I needed answers. The moment I opened the door, I felt overwhelmed. The room was a mess, papers everywhere, sticky notes covering the walls, boxes half packed with unsold clothes. Her laptop sat on the desk, still open but locked with a password. On a clipboard beside it, I found invoices and delivery slips from suppliers in Los Angeles, New York, and even overseas. Some were weeks overdue. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop, a bright red envelope marked, "Final Notice." It was from a credit company. Inside, it said she owed over $47,000. I sank into her chair, the air heavy around me. No wonder she'd been lashing out, she was drowning in debt. But instead of asking for help, she'd turned me into her unpaid worker, hoping to keep the business running without paying anyone else. As I was flipping through the papers, a name kept appearing, Marshall & Company. Financial services. That sounded more like a private lender than a bank. I googled them on my old phone. The search results made my blood run cold. They weren't just lenders. They were known for aggressive debt collection, even harassment. Dozens of complaints, stories of ruined lives. I was still reading when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. Sarah was back, hours earlier than expected. Panic surged through me. I shoved the documents back into place and quickly backed out of the office. Moments later, she walked in the front door. Her face was pale, eyes red as if she'd been crying. "Dad," she said quietly, "we need to talk." My heart pounded. Had she figured out I'd been snooping? Or was she finally ready to tell me the truth? Either way, I knew that whatever she was about to say was going to change everything. Sarah stood there in the doorway, motionless, like she was deciding whether to speak or to run. Her makeup was smudged, her hair a mess. I hadn't seen her look that fragile since her mother's funeral. "Dad," she said, her voice cracking. "I messed up. Bad." I motioned for her to sit down. We both took our places at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten Sunday dinners, laughed, fought, and shared quiet mornings. But this time, there was no warmth. Only tension. "I borrowed money," she started, her eyes fixed on the table. "From a company called Marshall & Company." I kept quiet, pretending I hadn't already seen the papers. "At first, it was just to keep my business afloat," she continued. "Sales were down, suppliers wanted payment up front, and I didn't want to ask you for help again. They said it was a short-term loan. No big deal. Just a bridge to get me through a slow season." She swallowed hard. "But then, they changed the terms. The interest shot up overnight. Every week, I owed more. And when I couldn't pay, they started calling. Threatening. They even showed up once." My stomach dropped. "Showed up. Here." She nodded. "Slowly. While you were out at the grocery store last week. Two guys in a black SUV. They said if I didn't pay up soon, they'd collect in other ways." That's when I started panicking. "That's why I've been making you help me with everything. I thought if I pushed the orders out faster, maybe I could catch up before it got worse." I clenched my fists, anger and fear twisting inside me. "You should have told me, Sarah. I could have helped. We could have gone to the police." Her eyes widened. "No, you don't understand, these people don't care about the law. If I go to the cops, they'll know. And then they'll come after me, maybe even you." She buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. "I didn't mean to treat you like that, Dad. I didn't know what else to do." I reached across the table and put my hand on hers. For the first time in weeks, she didn't pull away. "We'll figure this out," I said. "Together." But deep down, I wasn't sure how. Because if what she said was true, these weren't ordinary debt collectors. They were something far worse. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what Sarah had said. Two men in a black SUV, coming to our house, threatening her. My stomach twisted just imagining it. I wasn't a fighter, not anymore, but the thought of anyone scaring my daughter like that made something old and fierce wake up inside me. Around midnight, I looked out the window. The street was quiet, but every passing car made me tense. I barely slept. The next morning, I told Sarah I was going to the hardware store. She was too drained to argue. But I didn't go there. I drove downtown, to an address I'd seen on one of her invoices, Marshall & Company. Financial Services, Suite 204. The building was nothing like I expected. It wasn't an office tower, just a run-down strip mall wedged between a vape shop and a pawn store. The sign was faded, the glass door tinted so dark you couldn't see inside. When I stepped in, a man behind the desk looked up. Mid-40s, slick hair, gold watch, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "My daughter, Sarah Coleman, borrowed money from your company. I'd like to talk about her repayment options." He smirked, flipping through a folder. "Ah, yes, Miss Coleman. She's behind schedule." He leaned back. "You her husband. I'm her father." His grin widened. "That's sweet. You want to help her out. Because she's got herself in a deep hole. We gave her 30 days. She's on day 27. I felt a chill. And if she can't pay." He leaned forward, elbows on the desk. "Then we collect what's owed. One way or another." I stared at him, rage bubbling beneath my skin. "That sounds like a threat." He chuckled softly. "No, sir. Just business." Before I could respond, another man stepped out from the back office, tall, broad shoulders, wearing dark sunglasses indoors. He didn't say a word, just stood there, arms crossed, watching me. That was my cue to leave. When I got back to the car, my hands were shaking. I'd seen a lot in my life, bad people, tough situations, but something about those men felt wrong. Cold, dangerous. As I started the engine, I noticed a reflection in the rearview mirror. A black SUV, parked at the end of the lot. And as I drove away, it pulled out too, following me at a distance. I tried to tell myself it was a coincidence, that the black SUV behind me was just another car heading the same direction. But every time I changed lanes, it changed lanes. Every time I slowed down, so did they. My pulse started to pound in my ears. I took a few random turns through side streets, pretending to check street signs. The SUV stayed with me for nearly 10 minutes before finally peeling off down another road. Even then, my hands were still gripping the steering wheel so tight they hurt. By the time I got home, Sarah was sitting on the couch, her laptop open and tears in her eyes. She looked up when I came in. "Dad, you went there, didn't you?" I froze. "Went where?" Her face fell. "To Marshall and Company. I saw it on the GPS app. You took my car last week, remember? It tracks everywhere it's been." I sighed, lowering myself into the armchair. "Sarah, they're not loan officers. They're criminals. You should have seen that place, it's a front. And now they know your name, your address, maybe even mine." She covered her mouth with her hand, whispering, "Oh my God." I leaned forward. "Tell me everything. How much do you owe them, exactly?" $47,000, she said quietly. "But with penalties and fees, they said it's now closer to 60. I ran my hand over my face. "We'll call the police." "No," she said quickly. "You don't understand. They have my driver's license, my business registration, my suppliers, contacts, everything. They said if I go to the cops, they'll leak all my customers' info online and destroy my business. They can do it, Dad." I didn't know what to say. The fear in her voice wasn't just paranoia, it was survival. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling we weren't alone. Every creak of the house made me tense up. Around 2 a.m., I got up to get a glass of water, and that's when I saw it through the blinds. Headlights. Parked across the street. Same black SUV. Someone was sitting inside, engine off, lights dim. Watching. I turned off the kitchen light, my heart thudding in my chest. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about money anymore. They were sending a message. And I knew then that if I didn't act soon, things were going to get much, much worse. The next morning, I was running on 2 hours of sleep and a gut full of dread. The black SUV was gone when I stepped outside, but I knew better. People like that didn't just give up. They waited. They watched. While Sarah was in her room, I took out my old smartphone and checked the tiny audio recorder app I used to use at work. If these guys came back, I'd have proof, something I could take to the police, or at least use to scare them off. By noon, Sarah had gone to a supplier meeting. I told her I'd stay home and keep an eye on things. What I really meant was that I was setting a trap. Around 1 p.m., a knock came at the door. 3 slow bangs. Not the kind of knock a neighbor makes. My chest tightened as I hit record and tucked the phone under a magazine on the coffee table. I opened the door halfway. 2 men stood outside, one of them the tall guy with the sunglasses from the office. The other, younger, with a snake tattoo curling around his neck. "Afternoon," the tall one said smoothly. We're looking for Sarah Coleman. She's not home, I said, trying to sound calm. You can leave a message. He smiled, but there was no kindness in it. We already left a few. She's late on her payments. You wouldn't want her to make things worse, would you? I felt my pulse quicken. She's doing her best. You can tell your boss that. Snake Tattoo took a step forward, peering past me into the house. You live here too, old man. That's none of your business, I snapped. He smirked. It is if you're under the same roof as our investment. The tall one raised a hand. Relax, Ryan, he said to his partner. Then he turned back to me, voice calm but cold. Tell your daughter that if she doesn't make a payment by Friday, we'll come back. And next time, we won't just talk. They turned and walked away. The SUV's engine rumbled to life as they drove off. My hands were shaking when I grabbed the phone and stopped the recording. The audio was clear, every word, every threat. Proof. When Sarah came home, I showed her. She looked horrified. They came here again, she whispered. Dad, this is getting dangerous. I know, I said quietly. But now we have something to fight back with. She shook her head. You don't understand. If they find out you recorded them. Her voice trailed off, and suddenly she went pale. She was looking past me, out the window. The black SUV was back. Parked across the street. Engine off. Watching. That night, neither of us slept. The black SUV stayed parked across the street for hours. Lights off, no movement, just a dark shape in the shadows. Around midnight, it finally drove away, but by then Sarah was trembling. She kept whispering, what did they want from me? Over and over. I wanted to tell her it would be okay, but I didn't believe it anymore. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I called a buddy from my old garage days, Mike, a guy who knew people, the kind who could find things out quietly. I told him everything, even about the recording. He whistled low through the phone. You're messing with a bad crowd, man. Marshall and Company isn't just a lender, they launder money for bigger fish. Drugs, scams, you name it. You gotta get your daughter out of that debt fast. These guys don't play around. I thanked him and hung up, my heart heavy. If what he said was true, we weren't dealing with businessmen, we were dealing with criminals. When I told Sarah, she broke down. Dad, I'm sorry, she cried. I thought I could handle it. I thought I was smart enough. I hugged her, the way I used to when she was little. You're still smart, I said softly. But these people don't care how smart you are. Around noon, the line they'd drawn turned into a threat made real. We were eating lunch when we heard glass shatter, the front window. Sarah screamed. A brick rolled across the floor and came to a stop near the kitchen. Attached to it was a note. In thick black letters, it said, Friday. No excuses. Sarah was sobbing. I ran outside, but whoever threw it was long gone. Still, I could see tire tracks, fresh ones, leading away down the road. That was it. I'd had enough. That night, I backed up the recording, took photos of the note, and printed every document I'd found in her office. If they wanted to scare us, fine. But now, I was done hiding. When Sarah saw me packing a small bag, she asked, where are you going? I'm going to end this, I said quietly. One way or another. She grabbed my arm, panicked. Dad, don't. Please, they'll hurt you. I looked her in the eyes, the same eyes that once begged me to protect her from thunder as a little girl, and said, I'm not letting anyone scare my daughter in her own home. Then I walked out the door, not knowing if I'd be back. The drive to that strip mall felt longer than it was. The streets were quiet, the air heavy with that strange stillness before a storm. I didn't bring a weapon, just my phone, the recording, and the note from the brick. I figured if I walked in calm, I'd walk out the same. But deep down, I knew that might not happen. Marshall and Company looked just as it had before. Dark windows, faded sign, and that eerie silence that didn't belong in a business. When I pushed the door open, the bell above it jingled softly. The same man with the gold watch looked up. From the desk. Mr. Coleman, he said smoothly. I was hoping you'd come back. You seemed like a reasonable man. I didn't come to talk about reason, I said. I came to tell you this ends today. He leaned back in his chair, smiling faintly. Is that so? I placed the phone on the counter, hit play. The sound of their voices filled the room. You wouldn't want her to make things worse, would you? Followed by, next time, we won't just talk. His smile faltered for a second. Just a second. Then it returned, sharper this time. That's illegal, you know. Recording private conversations. So is breaking a window and threatening a woman, I shot back. I could take this to the police. Or maybe the news. I'm sure they'd love a story about your business. The door behind him opened. The tall man with the sunglasses stepped out, followed by another I hadn't seen before, bigger, meaner, his jaw tight with anger. Careful, old man, the tall one said. You don't want to make this worse for yourself. I met his stare. I'm not scared of you. He took a slow step forward. You should be. The gold watch man raised a hand. Easy, gentlemen. Mr. Coleman's just protecting his family. Then he turned his gaze back to me. Tell you what, you give me that recording, delete every copy, and maybe we forget about this debt. Maybe. It was a trap, and I knew it. But I also knew I couldn't fight 3 men alone. I slid the phone toward him, then pulled my other hand from my jacket, holding up my own phone, still recording that very moment. Already sent copies to a friend, I said calmly. If anything happens to me or my daughter, that recording goes to the police. For the first time, his smile faded completely. Silence filled the room. Finally, he exhaled through his nose and said, You're making a big mistake, Mr. Coleman. You think you're smart, but you're in deeper than you realize. I turned for the door, heart pounding, every muscle tight. As I reached for the handle, he added, Friday still stands. Don't be late. I didn't look back. When I got to the car, I could see my reflection in the glass, pale, trembling, older than I remembered. And parked 2 spots down, the black SUV. Engine idling, watching, following me again as I drove home. And for the first time, I started to wonder, not if I could protect my daughter, but if I'd already pushed things too far. Friday came faster than I wanted it to. Every day that week, the SUV showed up like clockwork, morning, evening, sometimes idling just long enough for us to notice before pulling away. Sarah barely ate, barely spoke. She jumped at every sound, every knock. I tried to stay strong, but I was breaking too. By Thursday night, she'd packed a small bag. Dad, we can't stay here, she said, her voice trembling. Let's just go. We can disappear somewhere. Change numbers. Start over. I wanted to agree, but running didn't feel right. I'd spent my whole life fixing things, not fleeing from them. And now, if I ran, she'd never stop looking over her shoulder. Neither would I. So I told her, let me handle tomorrow. No matter what happens, you stay inside. Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone. Friday, 5:43 p.m., the longest minute of my life. I stood outside the house, hands in my jacket pockets, waiting. The sky was turning orange, wind cold against my face. And then I heard it, the low growl of an engine. The SUV turned the corner and rolled to a stop in front of the house. 3 men stepped out this time. The gold watch man, the tall one, and the guy with the snake tattoo. They looked calm, too calm. Gold watch smiled like we were old friends. Mr. Coleman, he said, we had an agreement. I didn't move. You had threats. I brought proof. I held up my phone, camera light blinking red. You're live on video. Say one word wrong, and the cops get everything. The tall man scowled. You think that'll save you? Before I could answer, the sound of sirens cut through the air. 3 police cruisers turned the corner, lights flashing. The men froze. I took a deep breath. You were right, I said quietly. I'm not smart. But my daughter is. She called them an hour ago, told them everything. The officers poured out, weapons drawn, ordering the men to put their hands up. Snake Tattoo tried to run, but they caught him before he made it to the car. The others didn't resist. It was over in minutes. As they were led away, Gold Watch turned back to me, eyes burning with hatred. You think this fixes it? He hissed. You'll never really be done with us. Maybe he was right. Maybe men like him always find another way. But in that moment, watching those flashing lights reflect off the broken pieces of our front window, I didn't care. Sarah ran out and threw her arms around me, sobbing. Dad, you did it. No, I said softly, holding her tight. We did. The SUV was towed. The evidence was logged. By midnight, the house was finally quiet again. And for the first time in months, we both slept, not because everything was fixed, but because we'd survived. The next morning, sunlight poured through the cracked glass of our window. It wasn't much, but it was hope. I knew things wouldn't ever be the same between us, but maybe that was okay. Because sometimes, it takes losing everything to remember what really matters. Family. And the courage to fight for it.